Dr. Hansen, you came to Canada to talk about climate change and oil sands. What's your message?
Well, the simple message is we can't develop the unconventional fossil fuels, and tar sands being the first example, and have any hopes of stabilizing climate in the foreseeable future. You know, what has become clear is that the conventional oil and gas is enough to get us up to a dangerous level. We're going to have to phase out coal emissions. Coal is the biggest source now. We're going to have to phase out coal, and we're going to have to avoid the unconventional fossil fuels. That's a really clear picture, and yet it is one which is not realized and it's not being acted on.
And so what's the danger in doing that if we continue along with the unconventional oil and coal for that matter?
Well, the danger is that we will pass tipping points, and we will hand our children and grandchildren a situation that's out of their control. Examples of that are ice sheets. We can see that the ice sheets are beginning to disintegrate, but the rate is still small. And if we would restore the planet's energy balance, we could probably stabilize the ice sheets and avoid large sea level rise. Extermination of species is another potential tipping point where we're putting pressure on species for a number of reasons, but on the long run, the biggest pressure is going to be climate change, because climate zones are now shifting at a rate of about 60 kilometers per decade. And that's been going on for 3 decades now. That total movement will be large enough that it's going to be driving species to extinction. And because of the interdependencies of one species upon another, you can get ecosystems that begin to collapse. And this is not hypothetical, because we've no examples from the Earth's history. When there was global warming of several degrees, we drove a large fraction of the species to extinction. And over millions of years, more species came into being, evolved. But that's a time scale which we can't imagine.
So what was your message to, you're here in Alberta to talk about an oil sands project as a witness at a hearing. What was your message to the industry? Because you're talking today directly to the regulators and to the industry. What's your message about whether they should approve projects like this?
Well, industry is part of the solution. If they would start investing in the kind of energies that can solve the problem. But as long as governments let them get away with developing the dirtiest energy sources, then they will do that, because as it stands, fossil fuels are still the cheapest energy. But they're cheapest only because they don't have to pay for their costs to society. And that includes their impact on human health.
So you're an advocate of a fairly simple solution to help make better choices. What is that?
Yeah, the simple solution, and I think the only one that will work, is to put a gradually rising price on carbon emissions. That will, and the other side of it is that money should be collected from the fossil fuel companies at the domestic mine or the port of entry, and it should be distributed 100% to the public. That way, the public, first of all, will allow the fee rate to go high enough that it begins to affect their energy choices. And it will give them the money to make the adjustments to their lifestyle so that we can move to clean energies of the future and gradually phase out the dirty fossil fuels.
James Hansen, you made quite a few comments today about the impacts of climate change, and I think caught people's attention in the room. Do you ever get tired of telling those stories? I mean, the story for you is not new.
No, but the problem is that the public, we've got this huge gap between what has become clear to the relevant scientific community and what the public understands, what the public knows. And that's partly because the fossil fuel community has disinformed the public and has sold doubt about whether we really understand whether humans are causing climate change. In fact, that scientific story has become very clear, but the public is still skeptical because of the effectiveness of the campaigns to sell doubt. But
so do you ever get frustrated that, you know, the people that challenge the science don't play by the same rules, that they're, I mean, they challenge the science without science. In fact, they use rather, you know, rather spurious arguments.
Yeah, that's a good point. The fact is that there's a different standard applied to the scientists and the contrarians who dispute it. If you look, for example, the IPCC document had this relatively minor error in a much later volume of their reports. And so they're held to task for that, and then all of their conclusions are questioned based on this one relatively minor error. But yet, the contrarians make all kinds of errors. Their science is mostly non-science or nonsense. But yet, the public can't recognize the difference between the contrarians and legitimate scientists.
ERCB in Alberta is set up to make decisions allegedly in the public interest. And so what would you expect them to do with the information you gave them today?
Well, if they make a decision in the public's interest, then they would not approve this, because it's clearly not in the public's interest on the long run. It may be in the interest of some stockholders and even some people who get jobs with that project, but that's a small fraction of the people. And it's extremely unfair to young people. What we have here really is a matter of intergenerational injustice, because some people in the present generation will benefit from burning these fossil fuels, but the impacts of that, the costs, will be borne by young people and future generations. So that's when they make their decision, they should be looking at this in a broad sense, not just in the very short-term benefits of a small number of people.
Okay, thank you very much.